Hey Al. I know I've seen and read where people have had trouble with these Guillow pilots, getting them assembled, put together. So I thought I'd do. I'm about halfway through here with this one, but if you look at the previous video to this one, you can see where I used the blue or an ink pen for outline, just like like an ultrafine or a fine point Sharpie, and in this case it was a blue Sharpie, and you can see that blue line, which it doesn't matter, if it's blue or black or red or white. It doesn't matter what color Sharpie you use, because you're going to sand that off after you get the figure assembled. So here I'm just going around and using, well, in this case, Tester's liquid cement, just like a regular plastics modeling liquid cement, and gluing this up. And what you're left with at the end of it will be this heavy blue seam, and you're not going to slice at that. You're not going to use an X-Acto on that. You're just going to sand that off with a sanding stick or a flattened roll. You roll up I'll probably use 120 grit to start and see how that works. Maybe 100 grit. Something that'll rasp at it without grabbing the seam and pulling it. You want something that'll slide easily across it without grabbing it. So if you go with an 80 grit or 60 grit, it's going to grab a hold of the plastic and possibly pull the seam apart. You don't want that. But again, I'm not going to just put one layer of glue here. I'm going to go around here with the liquid cement, and after that's dry and closed all the way around, I'm going to come back with CYA glue. This is medium. It's also called gap filling medium, and that's important because when it will harden across any openings or gaps and put material there that can be sanded when it hardens. And even though they say, well, that CYA glue, when it hardens, is difficult to sand, it's different. It's heavier, harder. You just have to use a little more finesse when you're working on that spot, if you have one of those spots. I hope there won't be any openings or gaps, but if there are, we'll just, once they're filled with the CYA glue, we'll just sand the glue off carefully, not recklessly. We don't want this boot heel jammed in there. Alright, so maybe you can see that this is going together pretty well. I don't have any large gaps. Small one here around the dude's noggin. But we'll fill that with the super glue. I think everything else should be fine just with this adhesive here. Alright, so once this hardens up and is properly stuck, come back with the CYA glue, the super glue, and just go around the entire seam with a bead of that, and then we can take a look at sanding it. And again, I'll probably start with 120 grit and see how well that slides. 180 grit, if it's a little too grippy, too grabby, we'll switch to 180, and if that's, that should be fine. One of the two will be a good starting point. And then we'll just sand it until all the blue ink is gone. We won't go any deeper than that, really. And if that leaves a bit of an edge or visible seam of some kind, then I'll come back and go around it with plain old spackle. And we'll use the spackle as if it were a plastic putty, because it generally works the same way. And we'll with a wet application of spackle, wet our finger, a little bit of a drop of that spackle, and just kind of work any kind of visible seam back and forth, and then we'll lightly sand that away until it's rounded there and there is no seam, right? And that should take care of the entire operation. The other thing about this pilot, and I didn't even realize this when I built the Stearman kit, same kind of pilot, he's a little different looking, but it's the same idea. They mold this flat right here, and you're supposed to lay a piece of balsa wood on top of that. I thought I had a small sheet or slice here. Just as we won't use one this thick, but you lay a small piece of balsa that overlaps the entire area like this, and then you sand it to a proper dome shape. I don't know why they wouldn't just mold that complete, but they don't, and you're expected to finish it with balsa, so don't forget that step, as I did on my Stearman. Bit of a flat-headed pilot in there, but you don't really, I mean, on that one, you don't really notice it once he's all painted up. At least I'm able to overlook it. Maybe in one of the videos I'll bring the Stearman down and I'll show you what I mean about the pilot figure. Alright, so we just want to make sure we have a nice closed seam. It can overlap. There's an overlap here. I'm not concerned about. As I said, sandpaper is how you achieve that look you want. It's not this isn't something you can just glue together and it looks great. It takes a little more work than that. The thing I like about these balsa kits is just that, you know, it's not, everything isn't pre-made and fabricated for you. You don't have wing halves to put together and a fuselage halves to put together and an interior that builds up real nice out of pre-fabbed parts. This, you have to do everything in this. You have to make the structure and you have to make it square and correct, and you can't be sloppy, and you can't be, and you have to think ahead. Well, if I'm going to add this detail here, then I've got to notch this or cut that away, or I've got to do it different from the plan. So it takes a lot of head work when you're doing this stuff, which I like a little bit more than with plastic. Plastic, you have to think ahead, and you have to look out for different areas of the assembly and not run into yourself that way. But with this, it's a whole other ball game when it comes to that stuff. You got way more control, or way more to do with the outcome than you do with the plastic kits by about a factor of 10. You know, and again, I'm never going to knock plastic kit building. I do it here. I still build them. I've got one to do. As I said, I was going to use this as a reference, but I'm not doing the Razorback at this point. Doesn't mean I'm not going to put this together. We're still going to work on it. We'll do the best job we can. And I'll probably do it, you know, for the channel. That's still going to be a solid reference for me as far as the panel lines go, and other demarcation that I'll be doing. So it's not like I wasted my time getting the kit. It's still going to be helpful in a whole lot of ways. And so there. Alright, so that's our pilot. I'm going to switch the camera off now. I don't want to have too many overly long videos. The first video of this kit project is in 2 parts. I just labeled them unboxing and unboxing part 2, so I hope that's not confusing. And then when we get to general assembly, or when I get into the building of this kit, I guess with this this will be project part 1, not unboxing part 1 or 2. This is project part 1. All right. And as you can see, we've already, I think I showed you another video, I've already got the cowling opened up. So in and around the layup of the fuselage and wings and everything else, I'm going to be scratch building an R2800 double Wasp radial engine for this build, and I hope that goes together well. But you guys you'll be the first to know whether it does or doesn't. All right, thanks for watching. Have a good day.